plane disappears and reappears after 5 years. A plane disappears in the sky and reappears 5 years later, but the passengers feel like they were only gone for 5 hours. On April 7, 2013, a family is sitting at the airport waiting for their flight back home to New York. Over the airport loudspeaker, they hear that due to overbookings and schedule changes, some passengers will need to wait for Flight 888, which will be slightly delayed. Police investigator named Michaela is traveling to New York with her brother Ben and his son Cal, who has leukemia, and his twin sister Olive. They board Flight 828, leaving their family to depart earlier on another plane. Olive boards the second plane, while Cal boards Flight 828, which takes off. Before the plane reaches New York, it encounters a violent storm so intense that it shakes the plane as if it's being torn apart. The lights go out, and the emergency lights come on, causing panic among the passengers. After a while, the storm subsides and the plane stabilizes and continues on its way to the airport. The pilot tries to contact the control tower to prepare a landing pad, but the controller is shocked when he hears the flight number 888, and he prepares the airport for its arrival. When the plane lands, they find military forces, ambulances, and emergency vehicles waiting for them. The plane lands safely, but the passengers are shocked to learn that the date is now November 4th, 2018, and that the plane had been missing for 5 years. All the passengers had been declared dead since the plane disappeared from radar right after takeoff. The passengers can't believe what they're being told and think it's a prank, but Officer Vince explains that they were indeed missing for 5 years. After conducting tests, it's discovered that the passengers haven't aged a day, as if they entered a time gap that transported them to 2018. The security agency believes the passengers know what happened to them, and they begin investigations and tests on all the passengers. Life after the return. After 36 hours of investigations, the news spreads across the media, and the families of all the passengers arrive at the airport to see their loved ones, whom they had believed were dead. Ben and Michaela are shocked to learn that their mother passed away 2 years ago. They return to their home, which has changed significantly, rest after their ordeal. Meanwhile, the plane is under examination. Scientists and engineers find nothing unusual or supernatural about it. Michaela and the voice in her head. Michaela is worried about her fiancé Jared, who didn't come to the airport to meet her. She visits her old police station to find him and learns that he married her close friend a year ago. She's upset because, for her, Jared had only left her days ago, not 5 years ago. Meanwhile, Ben takes his son Cal to the doctor for a checkup and discovers that a cure for leukemia was developed. During the years they were missing, meaning Cal can now be cured and live much longer than the previously expected 6 months. Ben and his wife Grace are overjoyed. Michaela returns home and while riding the bus, hears a voice telling the driver to slow down. The voice grows louder and Michaela urgently tells the driver to stop. At that moment, a child runs across the street chasing a ball, and if the bus hadn't stopped, the child would have been hit. Later, a medical researcher, who was also on Flight 828, returns to her workplace and finds that the research she completed before disappearing had been applied over the years and had helped treat cancer. Her colleagues throw her a welcoming party to celebrate her return. The next morning, Michaela goes for a run and passes by 2 dogs barking loudly behind a gate. She hears the voice in her head again, telling her to free the dogs. She hesitates but continues her run, though the voice doesn't stop. That night, she goes back to the dogs but finds her brother Ben there, who also hears the same voice. They decide to break the gate and free the dogs, but agree not to tell anyone about the voice they're hearing, fearing they might be subjected to tests and experiments. The next day, the police review surveillance footage of the dog's liberation, and Jared recognizes Michaela as the one who freed them. He confronts her, but she has no explanation. Police manage to find and return the dogs to their owner, who accepts their apology. Ben tries to improve his relationship with his daughter Olive by attending her soccer match and getting closer to her quietly, knowing she had suffered emotionally for years after he disappeared. Michaela and Jared visit the dog owner, so Michaela can apologize. But when she approaches the dogs, she hears the same voice again and rushes to break down the door, freeing the kidnapped girls who had been missing for days. Police arrest the kidnapper, and Michaela solves her first case since her return, earning her reinstatement at work. At the same time, some passengers from Flight 828 experience severe headaches and feel compelled to return to the airport. Upon arrival, they are all shocked to realize they arrived simultaneously and felt the same compulsion. Suddenly, the plane explodes in front of them for no apparent reason. The National Security Agency reopens investigations into the passengers, but their answers remain consistent. They felt an inexplicable urge to return to the airport. After 10 hours of questioning, the passengers are released, placed under surveillance. The next day, Ben hears a voice in his head, but he ignores it and continues his day. He and Grace take Cal to his chemotherapy session, where they meet Sanvi, another passenger from Flight 828, who is thrilled to see her research applied to help cure cancer. After the session, Ben is walking down the street when he hears the same voice again. Follows it and meets Rad, a street singer, who was also on Flight 828. Rad tells Ben about his 13-year-old son, Adeo, whom he left with a neighbor before he disappeared. When Rad returned, he found his son in prison, wrongly accused of stealing jewelry from his workplace. Ben believes Adeo and asks Michaela to reopen his case. She finds that all the evidence is against him. Rad visits his son in prison, who insists on his innocence, claiming he only forged his ID to get the job and never stole anything. That night, Grace buys many new toys for Cal, but he's upset because he misses his old things. Olive reveals that she kept most of his belongings in a storage unit, unable to part with them. Among these items is something that belonged to Danny, Grace's friend, during Ben's absence. When Ben goes to retrieve them, he hears the same voice again and follows it to find the real thief, the son of the jewelry store owner. Ben helps expose the thief, and Adeo is released, proving his innocence. Michaela later logs into her Facebook account and finds messages from her old friend, expressing how much she missed her. This reminds Michaela of their friendship, and she tearfully goes to visit her. Meanwhile, Ben talks to Grace about Danny, telling her he understands why she moved on during his absence, and Grace is relieved. The murder of Kelly, another passenger from Flight 828, becomes the spokesperson for the passengers and frequently appears on TV, blaming the government for hiding important information about their disappearance. While watching the news one day, Kelly is killed by an unknown assailant. The police investigate, fearing that the murder is related to the flight passengers. Ben warns Grace to be cautious, suspecting Kelly's death might have something to do with her being on Flight 828. Later, Ben receives a call informing him that a strange protein was found in Cal's blood after his return, and the information must be kept secret until more is known. Michaela visits Kelly's crime scene, but is blocked by Vince, who tells her the case is now under the jurisdiction of the National Security Agency. Determined to uncover the truth, Michaela speaks to Kelly's husband at her funeral, believing her death is connected to her interviews and her criticism of the government. Part 2. In the second part, the story continues as the investigations deepen, revealing more about what really happened to Flight 828 and how it has impacted the lives of the passengers and society as a whole. My dear friend, subscribe and activate the bell to follow the rest of the exciting events of the series. And do not forget to leave a comment to encourage us to continue. Wait for us.